Have you ever had a moment where a simple mistake turned into something unexpectedly wonderful? Let me tell you a story from way back in 1750, a tale that perfectly captures the spirit of Christmas in the most unusual way. It's a story about a midnight service that started just a little bit too early. Imagine a small, quiet town in the middle of winter. Snow is probably blanketing the ground, the air is crisp and cold, and everyone is bundled up, eagerly awaiting the most sacred service of the year, the Christmas midnight mass. In the town church there was a caretaker, an old fellow who was perhaps a little tired, a little sleepy, and definitely feeling the effects of a long day. His one crucial job for the night was to ring the great church bell at the stroke of midnight, calling everyone from their warm homes to come and celebrate. But this year something was different. Maybe his internal clock was off, or perhaps he dozed off and woke up disoriented. Whatever the reason, our sleepy caretaker made his way up the bell tower not at midnight, but at 10 o'clock. 2 full hours early, he took hold of the heavy rope and began to pull. The deep, resonant sound of the bell echoed through the silent, sleeping town. Bong, bong, bong. The signal was sent. Across the town, people were startled. They looked at their own clocks, confused. 10 o'clock? It couldn't be. But the bell was insistent, its call unmistakable. In those days, the church bell was the ultimate authority. It was the town's heartbeat, its main source of time and information. If the bell was ringing for midnight service, then it must be time, regardless of what their own grandfather clocks were telling them. So families began to stir. They put on their heavy coats, wrapped scarves around their necks, and lit their lanterns. Children, likely woken from their sleep, were bundled up and led by the hand. Out into the cold night they went, trudging through the snow, their lanterns creating little pools of light in the darkness. They all made their way toward the church, drawn by the sound of that early bell. One by one, families and individuals arrived at the church doors, their breath misting in the cold air. They stepped inside, expecting to see the minister ready, the choir in place, and the service about to begin. Instead, they found a mostly empty, quiet church. A few other families were already there, looking just as puzzled. They glanced at the large clock inside the church and saw the truth plain as day. It was only a little past 10. A wave of realization washed over the small crowd. The caretaker had made a mistake, a big one. At this point, you might expect people to be annoyed. They had been dragged out of their cozy homes into the freezing night for no reason. They could have turned around, gone back home, and waited for the correct time. It would have been the logical thing to do. But they didn't. Nobody left. Instead, something truly remarkable happened. After the initial confusion, a quiet understanding settled over the group. They were all here now. The church was warm, lit by candles that cast a soft, gentle glow. It was far more comfortable than trekking back home through the snow only to come back out in 2 hours, so they decided to stay. People found their seats in the pews, not with grumbling or frustration, but with a sense of shared amusement. A few quiet chuckles rippled through the church. They began to talk to each other in hushed tones, catching up with neighbors they hadn't seen in a while. The usual formal silence of the church before a service was replaced by a gentle, friendly murmur. It wasn't loud or disruptive. It was the sound of a community simply being together. The minutes ticked by, turning into an hour, and then another. The atmosphere wasn't one of boredom. It was one of peaceful fellowship. Some of the women in the congregation had brought their knitting with them, a common practice for any moment of stillness. The soft click-clack of knitting needles joined the quiet chatter, adding to the cozy domestic feeling inside the sacred space. Young children who would normally be restless were calm, lulled by the peaceful atmosphere and the low hum of conversation. They were simply waiting, but it wasn't an empty wait. It was a wait filled with connection. They shared stories from the past year, asked about each other's families, and offered quiet words of comfort and encouragement. In this unplanned 2-hour prelude to the service, they were living out the very essence of community and goodwill that Christmas is all about. There was no agenda, no program, just the simple, priceless gift of time with one another. Eventually, the minister arrived, probably expecting to find an empty church. You can imagine his surprise when he walked in to see his entire congregation already there, waiting patiently, knitting and chatting like they were in a large, shared living room. He quickly learned what had happened, and instead of being flustered, he was deeply moved. He saw the beauty in the mistake. When the clock finally did strike midnight, the bell rang out again, this time for real. The service began, and it was said to have a special kind of warmth that year. The prayers felt more personal. The hymns sounded more heartfelt. The congregation wasn't just a collection of individuals. They had become a unified group, bonded by 2 hours of unexpected togetherness. After the service, the minister described the event not as a mistake, but as a pleasantly extended gathering. The story spread, and that year, celebration became affectionately known in the town's memory as the Christmas that offered bonus togetherness. It was a beautiful reminder that sometimes the most meaningful moments are the ones we don't plan. They arise from simple errors, from a break in the routine. This story has always stuck with me because it highlights a simple truth. The greatest gifts are not always found under the tree. Sometimes they're found in the quiet, unplanned moments we share with others. In our modern, fast-paced world, we try to schedule every minute. We rush from one event to another. We dread being bored or having to wait. But what if we embraced those moments? What if we saw a delay not as an inconvenience but as an opportunity? That night, a sleepy caretaker's mistake stripped away all the ceremony and formality, leaving behind only the core of what matters, human connection. Boredom transformed into a gentle, warm fellowship. It was a rare, beautiful accident where people were given the gift of time to just be with each other without expectation or rush. It's a wonderful lesson to carry with us, not just at Christmas, but all year round. The most precious moments in life are often the ones that happen by mistake. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more tales from history. What's a happy accident that you've experienced? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to read your stories. See you next time.